second here with Landon. He just hopped on. So he is, so we're going to talk, to add to the more exciting stuff that we've been discussing. Now we're going to talk about properly insuring your rentals and things to keep in mind. We figured that was a good way to end, after a lunch, and end with insurance, with the most exciting thing. So with that, Landon, your job is to keep everyone awake. And I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Eric. So I'm going to tee this up for Justin. He's my right-hand man, and we will spend a few minutes on that. And just to kind of wrap this up, I think there might be a little bit more compelling conversation topic or subject matter to kind of really wrap this thing up. Derek, we're so glad that you've had us here on the call today, and we're happy to be here. And so with that in mind, the first little portion of this, we will touch on how to insure your rentals properly. And then Sarah is going to go ahead and throw up some slides for us, for any of the owners on the call, for their consideration. We've got one other kind of more exciting, provocative topic to cover. But yeah, as far as covering or insuring your rental properties in a good sound way, there's different ways to do that. You can, depending on whether you own them in an LLC or whether you own them individually, can kind of help guide us and help us understand how to structure some policies. Some of the things that we definitely want to make sure of is that we're meeting your needs and making sure that all of your hard work doesn't go up in smoke or doesn't go out the window. And we just want to make sure that we're getting these policies done correctly. I'm going to let Justin talk a little bit more on that.
Awesome. Thank you. And we'll try to keep this short and exciting so we don't put you guys to sleep. It's like Derek said, insurance is super fun and super important. So the biggest things that I would say are the most important are what type of policy you have and how it's written. So first off, like everybody probably already knows, there's a few different ways to insure a rental property. We have just your basic dwelling fire, which is a landlord's policy. We have townhomes. Sometimes they're called HO6 or condo policies. And then also, if you have a commercial tenant, we have lesser's risk. And so first off, we want to make sure that we have the correct type of policy for your needs. And we have seen on occasion, people forget and they have a home insured just as a primary residence, never change it and say, hey, it's insured, we're good to go. And that can cause some problems if there's a claim. There's some key coverages that are missing out, mainly the coverage for lost rental income and some issues with your liability coverage as well. So we want to make sure you have the correct policy and that it is a rental property policy, not a primary residence. The other thing with these types of policies is they're a little bit more, there's a little bit more variation in what they cover. It's a little different from your normal primary residence. HO3, those are all built on a dwelling special form, and most things are going to be covered besides earthquake, flood from outside waters, acts of war and terrorism, a couple other things that are listed as exclusions. One thing you'll want to check with your agent, or if you don't have one, give us a call. We'd love to help you out. You'll want to make sure that if all possible, your landlord's policy is a dwelling special coverage. That's going to give you similar coverage to what you have on a homeowner's policy. If it's basic or broad coverage, the only thing that's going to be covered are the things that are listed on your policy. So if the coverage isn't listed, it's not covered. Some main examples we've seen, especially from last year on the mountain, is collapse from weight of snow. If you don't have a dwelling special policy, that's not covered. So definitely something worth looking into. And then the only other thing I wanted to touch on is having renter's insurance for your tenants and why that's important. So you're covering the building, obviously, but making sure that your tenants all have renter's insurance is extremely important in making sure that you don't take on liability if something happens. So for example, if there's a fire at your property and your tenant doesn't have renter's insurance, they may try to come after you for that property and say that it wasn't maintained correctly. Or if they have a dog that were to bite somebody on the rental property, we want to make sure that there's a renter's policy so that their liability coverage is what's paying out and you're free and clear. Does anybody have any questions? I know that was quick and a lot. Good.
Looks like you're good, so move on.
Yeah, you bet. One quick thing, if we've got a captive audience, guys, if you're still with us, awesome. If you're not here, come back here. And just here's the takeaway from everything that we just said. If you don't understand insurance or you don't understand it completely, that's okay. We do, and we can help make sure to get you set up in a way that's going to make the most sense to meet your needs and be a custom tailored fit for your situation. And so if we don't have any questions on any of that stuff, Sarah, if you want to, oh, here, Camille, you've got a question right here. Guys, here's the question that came through. Does your advice change if the rental property is privately owned versus in an LLC? So go ahead.
Great question. So that's a very important point. And going back to your policy being written correctly, first off, we want to make sure that your policy is written in the name of an LLC, if that is how it's owned. And the advice as far as coverages go is going to be the same. You still need all those coverages to protect your LLC, just like you would personally. But we want to make sure that your policy is set up correctly so that the true owner of the policy is being covered, and that at a bare minimum, your LLC is listed as an additional insured on your policy. Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, perfect. And there's also another important consideration with your umbrella. We always want to make sure that your umbrella is going to, if you have one. If you don't have one and you've hustled and grinded to a point in life where you have at least one rental property, we should definitely make sure that you have an umbrella and that it extends completely to everything that could be included or any risks that could arise from owning an investment or a rental property. So if anyone else has any other questions, now's a great time to jump in with any of that kind of stuff. All right, cool. Because we're gonna and feel free. I mean, Derek, we can get our contact information out there to you guys. If anything else pops up, we'd be happy to be in touch. But we're gonna change gears here in kind of a big way, and we're gonna talk about, for all of the owners out there, for anyone who's hustling and grinding and has aspirations to own additional rental properties, additional investment properties. How are you currently purchasing or identifying those properties? This is one of the biggest questions that comes to mind. Are you using your opportunity fund? And let's just take a minute right there and identify what we're referring to as an opportunity fund. So most folks will use a bank account, or typically it's a bank account as their opportunity fund, where they're holding their cash on hand to go and take advantage of a real estate investment opportunity when that opportunity arises. We just want to point out a secondary option that could potentially make a lot of sense to use as the opportunity fund. So the slide that's up there right now, thanks Sarah so much. What it's entitled, those big bold letters on the top, don't let a down market put a damper on your retirement. So how does that play into real estate investors? What kind of significance does that have for you guys how does it also incorporate your insurance? So if the stock market is down, or even if let's start there. Let's take that. If the stock market is down and you have market-based assets, the last thing you want to do is be forced to sell, or even in the real estate market, right? The last thing you want to do is be forced to sell a real estate market-based asset to create income or free up resources when the market's down. And so we don't want anyone to be forced to do that. There's an alternative holding place to these bank accounts. You could potentially use a life insurance policy. It's just a great cash management tool to help you do what you were going to do anyways. And we can talk about that a little bit more in depth. But essentially, what happens when the market is down and you need to take withdrawals from your retirement account, or even if you needed to pull equity from a real estate-based asset? We don't necessarily want your funds to deplete sooner than they have to, because it's a lot harder to watch them recover after a down market and you've drawn on them when the market was down. So Sarah, go ahead, next slide. This is where permanent life insurance comes in, like tee this conversation. A lot of folks don't know how cash value inside of a life insurance policy can be used to help purchase real estate or investment properties. We can do this in a really efficient manner, and I'm just going to jump right into that. If you have assets or cash inside of a life insurance policy, and that policy is earning a rate of return, say 6%, it's got a 0% floor, so it's in a risk-free environment. You can't lose any of the money that you put in, and it also accumulates on a tax-deferred and tax-free basis. And so how do we get to the money? When we want to go secure an investment opportunity or a real estate property, we can create a loan. And so if our money is at work in the policy and it's doing 6%, and the loan we create only costs us 5 to get the money out, we have a significant opportunity to create what's known as a positive arbitrage, or a 1% spread on the upside. And so you can leave your money in the policy as collateral. We access the cash through a loan from the insurance company, and we can get it to you within 24, 48 hours tops. So it's extremely liquid. And then when we create that loan, not only have we identified this first positive spread or this positive arbitrage, your money's at work in the policy doing 6. You get the money out through a loan that costs you 5. That's a positive arbitrage. Now, for a lot of folks that I've worked with that are in this same type of entrepreneurial type of a situation where they're looking actively to invest in real estate, this has worked quite well, because when we take the loan, the interest that's charged on that loan, we can also use that as a write-off or a deduction on our taxes. And so if you're in, a middle tax bracket, that can mean as much as an additional 1 to 2% of a positive spread. So your money's at work doing 2 or 3% on a risk-free or tax-free basis while you're using it. This is the closest thing to magic that I've seen that's legal and that happens every day of the week. And so we just wanted to kind of point that out there as an opportunity fund. It's an alternative to the traditional approach that folks usually use with bank accounts or money markets or things like that. And I want to just push pause right there and maybe open this up for any questions at this point. Okay, if there's no questions, Sarah, go ahead and move to that next slide. I think we've only got 2 more slides here. Okay, perfect. Is there a way that we can make that even just a little bit bigger? If not, it's totally. Oh, it's all good. Did we have a question? Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, and if you'll scroll back up just a little bit, perfect. So, guys, when we're looking at different asset classes to use as an opportunity fund, These are some of the features that each one of those different asset classes has. And so, Sarah, if you'll scroll down just a little bit. Perfect. That's great right there. So if we're using stocks, bonds, mutual funds, CDs, savings accounts, any other type of asset class, these are the types of pros and cons that are associated with each one of those asset classes. And we can look at the limitations on each one of them. And we can also look at the potential upside to using each one of these as we identify what's the best place to hold our money, especially if we're a real estate investor and we're always looking for that next play or that next opportunity to keep our wealth in motion. If we identify a nice income producing real estate opportunity and we are just able to grow our assets or grow our portfolio and we have those additional flows, what's the best place to put that money and where else can we hold it outside of our traditional savings account or checking account? And so we think that it could make sense to consider permanent life insurance as an alternative opportunity fund. And these are some of the reasons why. It doesn't play by a lot of the rules that many of these other asset classes have to play by. Your money's safe, it's liquid, you can get to it in an extremely efficient manner. And Sarah, if you'll scroll down just a little bit more. Just by holding your money inside of the policy, guys, I want to focus on that second to last little feature there. It's an income tax-free death benefit. So essentially, there's a lot of benefits that happen when you start to hold your money inside of a life insurance policy as opposed to the current opportunity fund that you may be operating from. Just by holding your money inside the policy, it pays for an income tax-free death benefit. And right now, many of you are probably using a cash or a checking or savings account type of position. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But if anyone was interested in having a one-on-one conversation, we could show you the implications that could potentially arise from working that way and the additional efficiencies that you're missing out on by not using a life insurance policy. So right now, if you die, your loved ones will just get the account balance that's in that opportunity fund. But if you passed away prematurely or at your passing, because it is a permanent death benefit, they would get the death life insurance policy. So Sarah, if you want to go down to that next slide. Many people have also expressed their distaste for taxes. I don't think I've ever heard anyone ever say that they were happy to pay a penny in tax. So when people ask me what I do for a living, my response, just to keep it really simple, is I say, get rid of taxes and make sure that people don't run out of money. And we do that oftentimes through life insurance strategies that people have never heard of. And so we've just gotten really adept at making sure that people understand the options that are available to them, whether it be through a market-based asset, something that's not in the market. We don't have to take on lots of risk. We don't have to take on any risk at all, but we're just here to help you magnify the efficiency of what you're doing, because at the end of the day, you're not hustling and grinding and not purchasing real estate investments to see that wealth go away. We can help you magnify the efficiency of what you're doing and do it in an efficient manner. And so we won't take any more of anyone's time today. Derek, if that's okay, I just wanted to be brief, concise, maybe just kind of point out a few things there and then just let people know that we can help mitigate taxes. There's a lot we can do, especially with real estate investors, to probably bridge the gap. There may be some inefficiencies that they have that they're not even aware of. And then guys, just one other cool thing about holding assets in a life policy, it's protected against creditors, bankruptcies, and lawsuits. So it really is a great place for people on this call to, maybe consider for holding up assets and just an overall efficient play. So guys, with that, if there's any questions, we'd be happy to jump in.
All right, looks like there's no other questions. So I appreciate you, Landon.